episode of Critical Role. Yeah, I think that about sums it up. It's Critical Role's 8-year anniversary, and it is incredibly fortuitous that we have such a huge episode on this anniversary week. The cast are all dressed in red to commemorate Ruidus, and I've got some Ruidus on myself. This is a new merch item, by the way, which you can check out in my merch store in the link below. I'm gonna skim over the first part of this episode somewhat because the second half, oof. This is probably the hardest episode I've ever had to recap. But before we get into it, something is not quite right. That's much better. We check in first with FCG and Fern, who we didn't see a lot of last episode. They've spent time going over the plan with Xandus and finalizing all the details. Ira, using his wacky telescope, sees that the Malleus key is different from his original design and appears to be missing a lens. That's going to be very important later. FCG messages Aurum, checking in, who says that they need some help with the downed water and that the skyship plan may be changing, so Fern and FCG decide to leave Xandus and Ira and start trekking towards the crater. In preparation, Fern drinks a potion of possibility, which gives 2 fragments of possibility, allowing you to reroll an attack, ability check, or saving throw, or to reroll an attack against you. Unfortunately though, I'm pretty sure she didn't use it at all. Before they leave, they impress upon Ira the absolute necessity of keeping Xandus safe. Remember what I said, Matthew Mercer, if you kill Xandus, our favorite captain, after already taking out Orc Daddy, we will collectively riot. It's not just critters who love Xandus though, the players do too, because FCG gives Xandus a potion of possibility. You know they care about an NPC when they start spending valuable resources on them, although maybe they don't all feel that way. I did see Laura's Vex peek through slightly. Back at the pit, Aurum, Lordna, Chetney, and Ashton take a short rest, successfully managing to deceive a Vanguard member who comes over and asks like, hey, what's going on? And FCG and Fern arrive. FCG takes a look at the downed water and sees that the arcane power core has been fried and cracked, and with a natural 20 works out that he can tether himself to it so he can take control. They take the cords on their head and essentially hotwire themselves to the water.
You suddenly sense, like, you have control of your body, but you now sense, like, arms and legs beyond your physical self.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Get away from her, you bitch!
This is the coolest thing ever! We haven't talked about those cables for ages, but I think that this is further proof that FCG was part of a larger Aormaton whose cables were connected to something else. Aurum catches up Fern and FCG about Caleb and Bo, and does a pretty good summary of things that they should be concerned about. 1, Ludinus might be setting up a trap. 2, Rin was petrified by a warding glyph. 3, there are mesh devices on the cavern walls and mirror structures and spires, and on top of all that, there are mage hunter golems. So, you know, quite a lot to deal with. Crammed inside the water's cockpit with Aurum inside its hand, they head down into the pit. As they make their way down, they see trophies placed around, including masks of judicators and symbols of gods that were taken from the downed Vasselheim ship. As they get closer, they can see that the dispelling wave is powered by 2 devices at the northern and southern edges of the pit. Imogen messages Keyleth telling her to come in an hour and that they're going to try and take out the dispelling devices. As they head down, they pass 2 figures, one who is General Ratanish, Otohan's right-hand man. Ratanish notices Aurum but doesn't recognize him and informs Imogen that there are rumors of more forces from Vasselheim arriving, which we do see play out later in the episode. As they get closer to the bottom of the pit, they see people placing potions of possibility inside the machine. That's thanks to Gianna Hexam's smuggling. And they also spot Otohan Thule, and we get confirmation that Otohan's backpack is indeed powered by Dunamancy potions, as we see someone installing them into the backpack. So it seems we were correct in thinking that Otohan is a Psi warrior who is gaining her Echo Knight abilities from the backpack. Otohan departs through a freshly excavated tunnel, and Imogen spots her mother, Liliana, floating up above. Bell's Hells continue to move through the cavern, saved by Imogen's absolutely clutch deception and intimidation checks.
What are you doing?
That's none of your business, son.
And head into a tunnel where they find a power core for the key and 3 guards keeping watch. Imogen tries to deceive them, but those rolls do not come in clutch this time, and we roll initiative. I'm loving these battle mat shots. They're so dynamic and interesting, and they add like so much cool flavor to the scene. It's really nice to be able to see actual close-ups of the minis and what they all look like, because the players are always exclaiming like, oh, look at that mini, and we like don't often get to see it, so it's nice that they're sort of taking a bit of extra time to do this. The party handle these guards fairly quickly, with Aurum killing the mage and Ashton killing the half-giant, and Chetney intimidating the remaining halfling guard. They notice that he is wearing a symbol of the Dusk Maven, which is the Marquesian name for the Matron of Ravens. He says they're made to wear them as part of their uniform, and it is odd that this faction, which appears to be religious, is caught up in this plan to destroy the gods. I think it could be tied to the fact that the Raven Queen was once a mortal who managed to take a god and usurp it, so the Paragon School might still view the Dusk Maven as one of us rather than one of the prime deities. We cut back to FCG in the automaton since it was too big to fit inside the tunnel, and he spots Otohan heading their way. Bell's Hells are in a panic. They're trying to clean up the side of the murder scene and hide, but Imogen decides to stand and face Otohan, ready with a psychic lance. And if that wasn't stressful enough, Matt has Liam and Marisha roll for Bo and Caleb.
Each roll. Actually, you would probably have advantage on this.
Just a straight roll?
Straight roll.
7.
7.
13.
Just as Otohan is about to enter the cavern, they hear a huge explosion, and the 2 devices that were powering that dispelling beam have been destroyed. Hell yeah, Mighty Nine. We don't need to worry about them rolling really low, right? Seems like everything went great, right? Otohan turns to leave, but Imogen attacks anyway, which I was like screaming at my screen. I was like, what are you doing? No! But Otohan sort of has like too much on her plate. She's like, I don't need to worry about that. I need to go and deal with this other stuff, and leaves the cavern anyway. If that wasn't reckless enough, FCG using the automaton throws a rock at her just as she's going by.
So right as Otohan goes charging out, you throw the rock, and Otohan, without even looking up, just kind of like puts her hand up, and it shatters into a bunch of rubble and stones that just kind of scatter around her, and you can see kind of like the psychic field that shatters it.
I think this is when we start to see Matt's plan for this scene or set piece really start to show, because it feels like he showed a lot of grace to the players and some of their choices. You know, it does make sense that Otohan wouldn't necessarily investigate these things further because she's, you know, a busy lady tonight. I think the main reason for that is because Matt had this plan that he wanted to pull off, and, you know, Otohan being there was an integral part of that. Ashton, Chetney, and Laudner focus on cutting the cords to the power device in the cavern, detonating some of the cores. FCG casts Sending to Ira to tell him it's time to launch the skyship attack, which, oh god, this is so stressful. It's like, I watched the episode, I know what happens, and I'm still like, I'm physically feeling stressed even just talking about it. FCG starts heading over towards Rin to try and recover her or her statue, and then this is when Ludinus appears.
You see an older elven gentleman with long silver hair.
Oh, no. My God.
An extended staff with like a hooked point at the end, almost a fork in a similar design as the top of the spire of the key.
FCG just tries to act casual in the water, and he picks up some rock, but as he does so, he collapses a wall and it lands on Rin.
Guys, I killed Rin!
This catches the attention of Ludinus, who deactivates the automaton with just a wave of his hand. You know, this is not the droid you're looking for. So FCG is just stuck inside it, unable to open it amongst all of this chaos. We later learn that Rin wasn't crushed altogether, but her arm was broken off. You know, it's not great, but it could have been a lot worse. Back with the others, Ashton kills the halfling guard, and they all try and blend in with the panic around them as the Vanguard and the Paragon's Call all gather around the key, ready for the big moment. Marisha and Liam roll for Bo and Caleb again, rolling a 5 and a 6.
And you watch as this figure suddenly gets grabbed as the form of Caleb Widdergasp stands with the Mage Hunter Golem clasped around the back of his neck in the middle of the city.
This is so bad. Caleb seems to have a similar anti-magic collar like the one that he used on Trent Ikathon, a cruel twist of fate, and Bo has also been captured, mind-controlled in some way, and manacled and chained at the base of the Malleus Key.
As Ludinus arms out. Thank you all for joining us. It seems we've had expected guests. Caleb, Beauregard, you have been thorns in all of our sides for quite some time. I think it's only fitting that we give you front row seats to what you've worked so hard to fail to do.
Not my Mighty Nine faves. I'm so interested to know, and I really, really, really hope that Matt talks about this on Four-Sided Dive, but I want to know, in a mirror universe, if Marisha and Liam had rolled, like, you know, an 18 or a 19, or maybe a cheeky nat 20, like, what this moment would have looked like. Because I think two things can be true. Matt had this moment planned for a long time, and he respects where the dice land. So I want to know what could have happened. Ludinus places his arm inside an opening in the machine, powering the residuum veins that run all the way up the side of the spire. The device opens, and inside is held a Luxon beacon. These are the religious artifacts of the Kryn dynasty, and they hold all of this magic with time and fate and gravity. And he uses this to cast an extremely high-powered time stop of some kind.
You watch as this device begins to glow, and everyone around you in the chamber seems to freeze in place. All of you feel yourselves stop, like you can't move. You're not breathing. Everything's just kind of locked. And the stars above, the storm, pass by. Hours go by in seconds. Before the red moon is held aloft
We know that in the Age of Arcanum, there was experimentation with time technology with these Dunamancy beacons. And the Age of Arcanum was a time of like huge magical works, like things that we couldn't even comprehend. The amount of magic that we have in Exandria right now, it is like on a whole other level. And we're seeing that play out here with Ludinus. As Ludinus removes his hand and arm, it is all withered and dark, like it sucked the life out of him to achieve that. And I'm feeling like this does point to my theory about Ludinus using the beacon and AOR beacon technologies to extend his life. You know, perhaps he had to sacrifice some of his life force to make that giant time stop happen. Then we get to see this incredible fucking map. Just so gorgeous and scary at the same time. At this point in the episode, like all of my notes, all they say really, they're just such a mess, is like, this is terrifying! Oh no! Oh my god! What? I had to watch this part like 3 times because I just kept forgetting to take notes. I was so stressed and like engaged. Following this mass time stop, the Silver Sun comes hurtling down towards the key, but Ludinus throws up a shield all the way around it and the sky ship smashes into it, throwing debris everywhere. Luckily, Ira managed to teleport him and Xandus off onto an upper walkway. Well, I mean, lucky about Xandus. I don't really care about Ira, but I'm very happy that Xandus is safe for now. I'm honestly not surprised that this plan didn't work. Matt did give multiple signals ahead of time that it was a bad idea, and I think was trying to save the party from destroying their one form of transportation, but you know, they still decided to go ahead with it anyway, and this is what has happened. Bell's Hells begin to take up positions among the wreckage, desperate to stop this and to help Caleb and Bo. The way this section of the episode worked was Matt had Ludinus giving a portion of his villain monologue each round, so I'm going to try and summarize sort of what everyone got up to, and then we will break down that speech. So Imogen casts command on the Mage Hunter Golem, commanding it to release Caleb, which it does, but he is still collared. Chetney turns invisible and starts moving around in order to attack Ludinus, and Laudna heads into another cavern to destroy some more power cores. She is able to with Eldritch Blast, and it does have a small impact, but not really enough to stop things. Ira starts sneaking towards the key, but Liliana spots him and banishes him. Bye-bye, Ira. If she can concentrate on the spell for 1 minute, which I think ultimately she does, he is sent back to the Fey Realm, so he won't be helping them anytime soon. FCG is trapped inside the automaton, but manages to get free with the help of Aram, and Imogen, still invisible, psychically connects with her mother and pleads with her to help to make this stop.
You hearing your voice, Imogen?
Mama. It doesn't have to be like this.
Where are you? I can't see you.
Mama, I love you. The better halves make a better whole. Please remember.
The way Liliana says, "Where are you? I can't see you," absolutely broke my heart. I really felt the panic and desperation there of a parent wanting to protect their child, but ultimately Liliana believes that going through this plan will be protecting her child because she wholeheartedly believes in the cause and that people will not be free until it's done. All right, so let's get into the meat of Ludinus's monologue.
The greatest lie ever told is that we need them. We are their gardens, their cattle. They created us to feed them with our faith, our hopes, our souls, lapping up their fables to give them form, purpose, control. They did not give us this world. They took it from the Titans, slew them in their home, and tilled its soil to harvest us for all eternity.
This has long been a part of the Exandrian creation story that I find really fascinating. You know, the gods found this planet and decided to create life on it, but it was already occupied by these titans. This is a point that Brennan also leaned into in EXU Calamity, when Asmodeus said to Xerxes,
"The primordials were here when we arrived. It was their world first."
this was the prime conflict of the Schism, the conflict that happened before the Calamity. The gods bestowed divine magic on mortals, and the primordials began to attack the mortals for that, and the betrayer gods decided to side with the primordials to try and destroy the gods' creations. The prime deities were ultimately victorious and locked the betrayer gods away, which is why this event is called the Schism.
But we, their special children, surpassed our masters. We questioned their games. We found our own will, our own power, our own drive to create that eclipsed their own. We unraveled their weave and killed one of them, became one of them. Then they feared us.
Ludinus is referring here to the Raven Queen, or the Matron of Ravens, as she is now called in Critical Role. The Matron of Ravens, who was Ruidus born herself, developed the ritual of seeding, a powerful ritual in which a mortal can ascend to godhood. She performed this ritual and slew the god of death, taking its place.
The Calamity was not a tragedy. It was a punishment. Their war amounted to them little more than a contest, and we all suffered for our excellence. A genocidal admonishment for following our own will. They still fear us, hiding behind their gate, reaping our dreams as they deceive us into ceding our agency to their whims and squabbles. They should be afraid.
Ludinus is right that the Calamity resulted in a huge scale of death and destruction. 2/3 of Exandria's population was killed. And not only that, but during the Calamity, the Prime Deities and the Betrayer Gods did call a truce for a short time so that they could collectively bring down the floating city of Aor, which had been working on god-destroying technology, the Godhammer. They were threatened, and they violently responded to that threat. In this next part of his speech, Ludinus looks towards FCG and addresses him directly.
You are not given life by any god, but by the hands of mortal creators like us. We are the new source of life, of creation. Stain my legacy all you wish. I have worked selflessly for 1,000 years to find the means of shattering these chains of fate and oppression. Let me be your villain if it means liberation for all and forever.
We don't yet know how Aor created the Aormatons, sentient automatons like FCG, but this would again be another threat to the gods since previously only they had been able to create life in that way, or new life. The big thing in this part though is Ludinus confirms that he has been alive for at least 1,000 years, so we were correct. Yes, he was there during the Calamity and saw this destruction take place. I still think that Ludinus is from Aor and has been able to use the knowledge of life-extending technology like we saw in the ruins of Aor in Campaign 2. Now we know that Ludinus is a survivor of Melasmir, the ancient home of elves, which befell a cataclysm when someone brought something back from the ruins of Aor, likely from the chamber of sort of mutated trees that we saw in the Aor ruins, and that this led to the corruption and destruction of Melasmir. I think it could be that Ludinus was responsible for this, or had a direct hand in it, because if he was from Aor originally, it would make sense that once he settled in Melasmir, he would want to explore and recover artifacts from his home city, and he may have brought something bad back, maybe by mistake, or got out of his control, or maybe he did intend to destroy Melasmir. I feel like Charlie Day over here right now, like, my head hurts with this shit.
Born in you, chosen Ruidus born. Seeds of Predathos' power. The burgeoning scions to now break these bonds. You have all gathered here for your true purpose.
So with this, the Ruidus born standing in the chamber, including Imogen and Fern, begin to emanate red glowing mist, glowing stronger in some like Liliana and less so in others like Fern. Imogen's mother said earlier to her that Predathos had been building a bridge and the Ruidus born are its mooring, and it looks like it's almost finished that bridge. It is literally using the Ruidus born as batteries.
Everything scales in the universe, even ecosystems. Tonight, we unleash the natural predator of the gods. Tonight, the children inherit the world. You hear dust kicked up in the air. The cloud of earth that's risen and thrown up begins to slowly dissipate as you see what looks like a large boulder has slammed from above. As the boulder slowly begins to unravel itself in the center.
It's Kiki! Kiki is here to save us! Everything is gonna be fine! Keyleth casts Mass Cure Wounds, giving everyone a little health boost, but Ludinus looks down at her and says, right on time, and casts Power Word Stun, which is a 9th level spell which automatically succeeds providing the target has 150 hit points or fewer, which Keyleth does in her elemental form and her true form. Otohan uses this opportunity to strike, and this... oh man. This was brutal to watch. Otohan manifests echoes using her backpack, and with those she attacks multiple times with advantage because Keyleth is stunned. She uses a psionic strike to knock her prone. She uses Unleash Incarnation, which is an Echo Knight feature, to get a 4th attack. The Echo Knights are attacking as well, and then Otohan does an action surge, basically to just do all of this again. Because she does so many attacks, she crits twice, and she just completely obliterates Keyleth's elemental form, and then her half-elven form as well. This was so hard to watch. Like, the players were just looked absolutely horrified, and the Twitch chat was a mess. Remember last week when we were saying maybe Matt brought in Keyleth to like give us and the players some hope that they could achieve it, they could do it? Well, forget that, because then this happens.
Otohan goes for like a heart strike, and there's a dark flash in the air. And you see where Otohan's blade was. Instead, you see a cloak of feathers.
Oh, what?
Fuck, what the hell?
Black raven feathers.
Wait, put it on the bingo. Put it on the bingo.
Is Vax on there?
You see a masked figure with long...
Shut the fuck up, man! Shut up! No fucking way! You cannot be serious!
Where is it?
Who is now standing over and protecting her body. Daggers in each hand. Don't you even dare.
Oh, God.
Oh my god, Liam's face in this moment. Okay, I want to explain a little bit, just for people who haven't watched Campaign 1, but this is big spoilers, okay? So just be prepared, big spoilers. Are we good? Vax and Keyleth were romantic partners in Campaign 1 and had a tragic fate. Vax had made a pact with the Raven Queen in exchange for his sister's life, a moment that we saw play out in Legend of Vox Machina, and at the end of the campaign, Vax made good on his promise and left his mortal existence behind to become the champion of the Raven Queen, saying goodbye to his friends and to Keyleth. Keyleth never got over the loss of losing Vax, so him returning to protect her is like incredibly tragic and romantic and heartbreaking. This felt like a bit of a rallying cry for the party, who then start to team up on Otohan, specifically trying to take down her backpack, which Matt gives an AC of 25, but they all roll so poorly, and Orym is really the only one who manages to do any damage to it. FCG tries to dispel Caleb's collar, but fails, and Chetney, goddamn Chetney, actually leaps full tilt at Ludinus from the Malleus Key as a werewolf, which would have been so fucking badass if Ludinus had not just cast shield and just tossed him away like he was nothing, where he got impaled on a spire. And then Ludinus reaches the finale of his speech.
And now, the final piece. The sliver of divinity. The lens. And he snaps as he reaches his other non-withered hand back into the device, as Liliana, who's holding her action, goes ahead and casts a spell down towards the champion of ravens. You watch as suddenly all the mirrors on the side of the tunnel turn on at once, and these bright beams of energy shunt into him like hundreds of reflecting mirrors. He triggers something within the machine, and you watch as the champion screams out in pain and is compressed down into a sphere of dark shadow. Liliana lifts it up with her telekinesis and places it into the empty spot of the machine. It is time, my children. You watch as every Ruidus born in the chamber stands tall, including Imogen, as red energy filters out into the center. It's being drawn in as it begins to rise and crackle before the energy begins to gather and form. Ludinus glances up. Let us destroy what will unmake them. And you watch as this incredible thick beam of red energy fires up into the sky. It lights up and sends every cloud scattering out of visible sight, up into the air, up towards the red moon of Ruidus. In that moment, Ludinus, kind of still holding his other arm into the machine, smiles, his eyes wide. 1,000 years. You couldn't stop me. It's too late. It's too late. The red begins to glow brighter and brighter. You watch as all of the tethered Nexus energy, all the converging power of the ley lines begins to spark and grow lighter and lighter. Magical energy begins to flow out in all directions. The sky goes from pitch black to a deep red to a multicolor explosion of magical arcane energy into white.
I can't process it. I'm trying. The white fades and the party finds themselves teleported and split up. Laudna, Ashton, and Orym wake up in a rocky landscape with geysers and sulphurous ponds, and they see Ruidus tethered with a red beam. FCG, Fern, Chetney, and Imogen wake up in a snowy landscape, which Chetney recognizes as the Crystal Sands Tundra near Uthadern, his hometown. With the party split across continents, that is where the episode ends. What? I'm sorry, I feel like this entire recap has just been me, like, screaming at the camera. It seems like Ludinus cast some form of, like, mass banishment, maybe? Like, a slightly convenient form of banishment, though, because I'm pretty sure we're now going to be confronting Ashton and Chetney's backstories, since it seems like it is kind of the DM sort of forcing that to happen. And it looks like Ludinus is going to succeed, unless they can work out how to teleport back there in a hurry or some other forces come in. There is no way that Ludinus doesn't pull this off. Ludinus needed some divine element to finish the key, much in the same way that Laren needed something divine to finish her machine to harness the ley lines. When Bo and Caleb said that Ludinus was getting sloppy and they were worried that it was a trap, they were right. This was specifically a trap for a god's champion. You know, whether or not it was specifically was for Vax or Ludinus was just assuming some champion from the gods would show up to stop him, we don't know. I do think, though, that it must have been specifically for Vax because they were clearly prepared for Keyleth, and they took her down straight away. Vox Machina are extremely famous heroes, you know, with their stories chronicled by the famous Taryon Darrington, so Vax and Keyleth's relationship probably isn't a big secret. We've been wondering for ages about why the Vanguard attacked the Ashari in the first place, and I wonder if it was an initial attempt to lure Vax that failed, or if it was a way of testing Kiki's capabilities so that they would know how to take her down when the time came. The fact that the party is split is a very interesting choice because I think it points to something much further down the line. I've always maintained that Critical Role is probably going to shake up their core cast eventually. You know, they've been doing this for 8 years, and I think it's inevitable that some of the players might want to take an extended break at some point or are not able to always do a full campaign. However, critters don't respond very well to change, so when they started bringing in more long-term guests like Robbie and Erica, I thought perhaps it was a way to get the audience used to some other cast members so that in C4, if they shake up that lineup, it might not be such a shock. Splitting the party in this way could be an amplification of this. We might see some guests joining each separate party for a longer period of time, giving the players a bit of a break and getting the audience used to some new faces. A lot of people are still guessing that Predathos is going to come in and consume all the gods to make way for a new game system wholly separated from D&D lore. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm just caught up in the hype of the moment, but like, I could see that happening. This felt very much like a cutscene with Matt setting up something big, and this could be it. I realized as I was writing this that it's interesting in hindsight that none of the players took a class or a background with a connection to a god, to a prime deity. FCG has been exploring a connection to the Changebringer, but Matt has not really lent into this at all like he might have in previous campaigns. When Ford was reaching out to the Wild Mother, it felt like the Wild Mother was genuinely responding and encouraging that connection, whereas the Changebringer has been completely silent. I wonder now if Matt specifically asked the players not to create characters with powers derived from the gods so that when this inevitably played out, they wouldn't be left powerless. Alright, we gotta talk about the steam engine in the room, because I know a lot of people were mad about this or frustrated about this episode and saw it as being railroaded with no chance of the party winning. And I gotta say, yes, I agree, but I don't see that as being a bad thing. I think the reason there was no chance of the party winning is just because the odds were stacked so high against them. You know, not to punish them or for Matt to like get one over on them, but to create a dramatic moment with lasting impacts on the world. It's kind of like when the Chroma Conclave attacked Amman. Like there was no possibility of Vox Machina preventing that because it was just too insurmountable an enemy. I really view the second part of this episode as like a cutscene in a video game with the players able to make some choices, but ultimately it was going to end this way. And it was freaking dramatic and scary and awesome. So like, I'm okay with that. But I'd really love to hear your thoughts on this. Did you enjoy it or did you find it frustrating? Discussions about railroading can often get heated, so I just want to remind all of you to keep things civil or your comments will be deleted. It's okay to disagree with something, you know, as long as you are respectful. Okay, so what are we going to see next week? I think we're probably only going to see half the players at the table for a while, potentially with some guests coming in. And then maybe we'll see like a time rewind with the rest of the party and how they respond. I'm really hoping we get to explore some of Chetney and Ashton's backstory now that Matt has really forced them to confront it. Especially Chetney, because really they had no reason so far to go to Otohan. And I wonder if Mika will return to the table as Rini. It'd be really interesting to see her roleplay Rini like many years on from the Mighty Nine. Okay, that's it from me. I feel like there's just so much more I want to say, but I've already been recording for like an hour. I have no idea how long this video is going to be. Please put all your theories and thoughts in the comments. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe. This video took me so long to make because this episode was hefty and like I would really appreciate your support. I know a lot of people who watch these videos are not subscribed, which is cool, but you know, throw your girl a bone. If you're looking for something to watch in the century between now and the next episode that we have to wait, why not check out my EXU Calamity breakdowns to see the world end again. Bye!